Yacht Club Games had always promised playable boss characters as part of their Shovel Knight Kickstarter. In September of 2015, that promise came to form with their first reveal of Shovel Knight, Plague of Shadows, a brand new story in Shovel Knight's world where you play as Plague Knight, the boss of the Explodatorium level. Plague Knight as a character was redesigned to be completely unique from Shovel Knight's way of play, with double jumping, throwing explosives as a primary weapon, and new trinkets. Unfortunately, for all the effort put into this new update, Plague Knight's chapter was rather boring. The primary issue being that Plague Knight as a character was really the only difference to the new story. You still play in the exact same levels and fight the exact same bosses save for some few changes. The village area is now a secret underground layer of Plague Knights where you can buy upgrades and weapons. Levels now have hidden paths exclusive to Plague Knight's story, but they're very minimal and feel very tacked on to add something extra to the levels we've already played through once before. And of course, Plague Knight cannot fight himself, so you get to fight Shovel Knight in the Explodatorium. Plague of Shadows only gave Shovel Knight a fresh coat of paint with a new character, but it was still the same old game, and not enough of it was new or different to give this chapter a feeling of freshness. I actually haven't even finished Plague of Shadows because it was that drab for me. Come 2 years later, in March of 2017, Yacht Club basically proved they learned that their boss chapters couldn't just reuse content from the original Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight Specter of Torment revolves around Specter Knight from the Lich Yard level. Specter of Torment, compared to Plague of Shadows, is a completely different video game from Shovel Knight. Not only is it a new character within Shovel Knight's world with unique gameplay and story, but the entire levels, enemies, trinkets, bosses, hub level are new. Jake Kaufman even composed an entirely new soundtrack just for this new chapter. Specter of Torment reuses very little from Shovel Knight, the most being previous character and boss designs. But for the bosses that return, they are redesigned battles with mechanics designed around Specter Knight's new gameplay style. One of the most notable changes right off the bat is the hub world format. It's a new location where you can buy upgrades, just like how Plague of Shadows had a new underground village hub, but instead of exiting it and returning to the map, there is no map in Specter of Torment at all. Instead, you choose a level a la Mega Man Select, as opposed to the original Shovel Knight's Mario Bros. 3 map-based overworld. This difference is small considering they're just two interfaces for selecting levels within each game, but it makes a big statement in how Yacht Club wanted to make Specter Knight feel like its own separate game in as many ways as they could. The story is a prequel to Shovel Knight chronologically, so all the levels are designed as sort of past versions of each level from Shovel Knight, and they all hold a darker tone in their visuals and their music tracks to fit Specter Knight's atmosphere. Furthermore, since levels are being built from the ground up, they were designed in tandem with Specter Knight's new gameplay concepts as opposed to fitting a bomb-throwing pyromaniac into a world designed around shovel hopping. Specter Knight's main gameplay concepts are wall climbing and wall jumping, as well as launching himself diagonally up or down at opponents and obstacles when attacking, depending on his position. The new levels are fun, they're fresh, they aren't Pridemore Castle for the third time in a row now, thank God. And Specter Knight's original platforming concepts being separated from those in the original Shovel Knight highly add to preventing these new levels from feeling stale in any sense. Oh, and best of all, Yacht Club actually addressed one of my biggest complaints with the original Shovel Knight. If you've watched my old video on Shovel Knight, you'll know that I had an issue with how health and magic upgrades were acquired. They were locked down to mostly being purchased in the village with gold obtained through levels, which had its merits, but ultimately left me wishing they were located out in the levels where the most cunning and clever could find them in hidden places. I also mentioned how obtaining trinkets already followed this idea, and you still had to buy them in addition to finding them hidden within the levels. So why didn't health and magic upgrades follow suit other than to be something to fill an empty village hub level? Well, Specter Knight completely solved that problem with the most ingenious solution. First, trinkets are now purchased in the hub level, the Tower of Fate, with red skulls you find throughout each level, so this adds a cool new collectible that isn't just music sheets. Health and magic upgrades, however, are now hidden extremely well within the levels. Finding them will net you the upgrade instantly. However, if you fail to find them in a level, back at the Tower of Fate, you are now given the option to purchase that missed upgrade with gold. This is just so absolutely brilliant. Important upgrades are initially an optional quest for the player to discover. But if they don't want to, or simply fail to find it the first time, instead of going back for it in a second run through of the same level, you can now buy it with the gold you obtained within that level. This applies heavy value not only to the upgrades by making obtaining them a challenging trial for the player, but it also gives purchasing them with gold a much higher value than it did in Shovel Knight. Is it worth replaying the level to go back and find it, or would you rather just use the gold you've obtained as an alternative means of acquiring the upgrade to save yourself time? It makes for a much more interesting means of reward compared to just having to buy it in a shop. 2 of the boss chapter updates have been released for Shovel Knight. While the first one was unfortunately designed around fitting a boss character into the game we've already once played before, the second update turned that around, delivering a completely new experience in every aspect on top of providing a solution to my complaint from the original game. I'm highly confident that Yacht Club will provide a similarly unique experience with their third boss chapter, which will be based on King Knight. But hey, that's just my perspective.